All Sam Field wants for Christmas is to make the business deal of his life. There's just one catch.
All we have to do is pretend to be your family?
But it may be more than he bargained for. Touched by an Angel's Roma Downey and Will and Grace's Eric McCormick. Borrowed Hearts. Tomorrow at 8, 7 Central.
Welcome to another stocking stuffer, and this might be the oldest movie we have done for this series. I've done some from the 90s, but this one is special, folks. As you heard from the trailer, we are covering 1997's Borrowed Hearts for CBS. There's so much going on in this movie. I can't handle it. I need support. I need a partner, and my partner today, you know him, you love him. It is Elwood Jones, the one and only of From the Depths of DVD Hell, if you're a reader or if you're a listener, from the Asian Cinema Film Club and Movies and Tea. Hello, Elwood.
Hello, Emily. It feels like it's been far too long.
It has been.
And now we're finally back together, reunited again.
Reunited over a couple of angels, wouldn't you say?
Angels to some, demons to others, we could say about this movie.
There's so much. Now, I did pick this movie. I gave you a choice. I threw out a couple of different titles. I've decided something. I did this last year, and now I can't remember. Oh, it was with good friend Keith. I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was this wild 90s movie with Kathy Ireland. And I think I will absolutely make it a tradition now of every year I will have to cover something from this era. Because part of what is very interesting about this movie to me, in context of what we do here, is that it is not, obviously it's not a, cozy cardigan Christmas movie the way we know them today, but I feel like this is without these kinds of movies in the 90s and early 2000s, we don't get to Hallmark. This, I think, is very much the framework of these movies is all here. It hits a lot of the tropes. It does some things that you don't see done today in these movies, but for the most part, if you could edit this very easily into a Hallmark movie today.
Definitely so. It's when I think of those sort of Hallmark movies, I think this one very much falls into that sort of category. It's got a very sort of similar setup. Mm-hmm. It's also got a worryingly similar setup to the Leslie Nielsen movie Rent-A-Kid, which I also remember watching one Christmas.
Nice. I don't know that one. It's if my crush Leslie Nielsen is in it, then I'll have to check it out. But yeah, the whole fake a family to impress another corporate person. It's something we've seen also in more recent Hallmark movies. These always come up. It's in the list of 6 plots that these movies do, one of them that you'll get 7 movies of every year between Hallmark and Lifetime is the whole, we have to pretend to be a couple in order to, whatever it is, save the town or, buy the town, whatever it might be. But this one, before we get into the plot, of which that is a big part of it, let's talk a little bit about who's behind this movie. Now, we'll start with the writers, because I think they make a little more sense. This might be the first Cozy Cardigan Christmas movie I've covered for Stocking Stuffers that actually has an Oscar-winning screenwriter attached to it, or a pair of them. So were you familiar with Pamela Wallace and Earl Wallace?
I wasn't familiar with them, and I hadn't actually thought to look them up now till you mentioned who they are, because I was so blown away by who directed this.
Oh, yeah. I'm building up to that one.
Yeah, exactly. But, I can see that obviously she was involved in Witness, Harrison Ford movie.
Yep.
Which I've never seen, but obviously I need to go and check it out if it's after this film, certainly.
It is very good. And also, we probably wouldn't have had Amish Paradise without Witness. So, for a lot of reasons, it's an important movie in the canon. So, Pamela and Earl Wallace, they worked quite a bit. They also, Witness was probably what they were best known for. They also wrote some segments for both of the If These Walls Could Talk movies, which were about abortion, and then I think the second one was about, I don't think the second one was abortion. I think the second one was just about LGBTQ, but I don't quite remember. But interesting careers. Pamela Wallace, I think I think her husband died earlier. She did a lot of TV work as well. So she has a lot of different like early Hallmark movie credits, a lot of different successful TV movies, and something called Single Santa Seeks Mrs. Claus. I don't know anything about it except for the title and that it was written by her, so therefore I have to find it and probably watch it next year. But
Yep.
that's the screenplay. Now let's talk about the director of Borrowed Hearts. Director is Ted Kotcheff. Kotcheff?
Yep. Kochev.
Kotcheff. What are some other titles that he directed?
Ketchota, I can't even say it right myself now. Ted Kochev, the director of Rambo First Blood.
Mm-hmm.
And really excitingly for myself, he also directed the Australian New Wave movie Waking Fright.
Wait, did he?
He did.
I
in
didn't even
71.
realize that. I was just so stuck on the fact that he also did Weekend at Bernie's.
Oh, yeah, and he also did Fun with Dick and Jane, the original version from 77.
Wow, I didn't even realize he did Wake and Fright. Somehow I glossed over that because I was so stuck on what it known for. Weekend at Bernie's, First Blood, Wake and Fright, The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz, and, though it is not listed first on his IMDb credits, Borrowed Hearts.
Yeah. If you've never seen Waking Fright, you are doing yourself a serious disservice because it is an amazing film which plays against every idea you have about the setup, where you have this teacher who's got to stop off in this mining town, and you assume that it's going to be like the Wicker Man, the locals plotting against him, but the locals aren't. They're just a bunch of hardworking folk who like to gamble and drink, and he like looks down on them, and everything that happens to him is as a result of himself and the choices he makes. Like, you think, you keep waiting for the foot to drop, and these locals are going to turn on him or rip him off, or they're going to have some plot, and it never happens. And it's just a truly phenomenal movie. It's got Donald Pleasance and Gary Bond, and there's so many films in like the exploitation genre I love.
Yeah.
And Waking Fright is just sort of like just such a standout in that little genre. It hits so many notes, and it's so dusty and dirty, and Donald Pleasance is on phenomenal form.
And
It's
it would
like
make
on
such a
Death
great
Line
double
form.
feature with Borrowed Hearts, would it not?
Oh yeah.
Totally the same
certainly
audience,
would.
100%. I sit down for my CBS movie of the week, and I love Touched by an Angel, so I'm going to get some Roma Downey. Oh, and what should I follow it with? Oh, I see the director has also made this other movie that looks lovely. Why don't I give it a try? I do like the idea of there being crossover somehow. So let's set this movie up, and we're gonna. Although this movie does go in some directions that I found surprising, it also goes exactly where you expect it to in the end. So, can you, Elwood, give us a synopsis, a summary, walk us through the plot of 1997's Borrowed Hearts?
Okay, so we've got Eric McCormack here playing a rare straight role, and also a rare straight role where he's not a villainous like brute. Because every time that he plays a straight role, he's always sort of like a worst person possible. He's like a horrible villain. So
Yeah, he's been a rapist on Law & Order SVU like more than once.
yeah, he was on Dead Like Me. He was the abusive boyfriend who becomes a graveling. He's just lovely on Will and Grace, horrible everywhere else. But here he plays Sam Fields, who's like a high-powered businessman who owns a sort of warehouse, Walmart, Costco style store.
Okay, good. So you don't know what that place actually does either.
It seems from the way it looks like a Costco or a Target, but at the same time, it's apparently also just a warehouse.
I just thought it was a factory. I thought they were making stuff.
So
But I don't know what they were making.
But apparently he's a businessman and an industrialist, normally one or the other, but apparently he's both, and he owns this factory, and he's also got a whole bunch of daddy issues. So he's been
Yes, he does.
been determined he's going to like be a self-made man because his father always had all these doubts in him, and he's working on this merger. So he's got this client coming in called Javier del Campo, who's played by Hector Elizondo.
Hector Elizondo.
He's got a wonderful accent and is charming as sin, which is fitting, really. And he's basically been sold himself as he's like a family man, and his partner's like set up this horrible actor family who are just like not working out at all. And at the same time, you've got the single mother and her daughter, Zoe, who, for one reason or another, she charges into his life. And
Zoe is such a little piece of shit. We can just say it. Zoe is a little shit. I have so many notes on Zoe.
She's a precocious child who will go, "That's like my dollhouse," and that gives me apparently free reign to just dash into a stranger's house. But luckily, they like fall into his lap, and it's sort of like the remark by his best friend and business partner Dave, who's like, "That is a wife," and so he makes a deal where he's going to pay her a bunch of money, and they're going to pretend to be his fake wife and child and impress his clients. And of course, over the course of the number of incidences, the contract gets extended from being a weekend to basically the whole of the Christmas season. And as you can see from the first 5 minutes of this film, that they're all going to find how they connect on some wonderful deep level and bond and have a wonderful festive time.
Yeah. So you have a lot of the usual setup here, as far as you have a guy who's got to have like his heart melted, by the kindness of the Christmas spirit. So there's Roma Downey. What is her character's name? I just kept saying touched by an angel lady.
Kathleen,
of course. Yes, Kathleen, touched by an angel lady. So
yes, who's introduced with the best hair, and then when she gets the makeover, she gets the worst hair.
She does. It's that weird like Breakfast at Tiffany's updo. This movie is fun for the 90s-ness of it. It's about like adults, so the fashion isn't quite as 90s as it might have been if it was younger characters. But I mean, Eric McCormack's hair in this movie is something I actually love that he does. He is acting. That hair is giving a far better performance than the kid. I'll tell you that much. But a better performance than most of the people in this movie, I think.
Yeah.
There's also the question of whether or not Hector Elizondo is an angel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, it plays him well because he's an investor, so he's an angel investor.
Oh, I didn't even pick up on that. That's good. That's very good.
So we have that, but at the same time, his character arc would indicate that he's more of a devil. He carries a cane. He's got a bit of a beard going on.
Yeah.
And he's making the sort of deals that you would expect from, like, needful things. It's sort of like a devil. He's testing the morality of Sam, really.
Yes. You're right. It is definitely the entire time. It seems like he knows right from the beginning that this Roma Downey is not actually married to Eric McCormack. You just see the way he looks at it and the questions he asks. It's like, oh no, he knows this is all a sham. But you're right, he always makes sure that it is Eric McCormack's decision on whether to lie, on whether to sell his... Because that's why I think it was a factory. I think it was a production company of some kind. And this is another weird way this movie is so dated, is that in the 90s, the fear was moving jobs to Mexico, and it's obviously very different today, where, at least in the U.S., all of the production woes are moved to China. But in this case, it's, the whole factory... Essentially, he's selling the business, and it's going to move, production will move to, again, we don't know what they're producing. It's very mysterious, and now I'm thinking it had to be like weapons of mass destruction or something more ominous. But it is that question on if he's going to lay off his entire workforce, and Hector Elizondo is like, I'm ready to sign, are you? It's kind of ominous. You're right. I didn't pick up on the devil aspect, but it's definitely there. Yeah.
And also when we look at like the character tropes of people who play the embodiment of devils, it's always canes, facial hair, long coats. These are all like the traits of devil characters. If you're an angel character, you're not really be sort of like very working class. You'll be like a cleaner or a janitor. You'll be very sort of like working class. You'll be very sort of like laid back and friendly and encourage people to see the good in people. Yeah, you also don't make deals with people where... True. Because so, like, if he takes a deal, then what we got? We got an angel with a company. What's
that's producing weapons of mass destruction, yeah.
It makes no sense. Well, obviously, if it's a devil or a demon, it's sort of like then they they lean towards industry and wealth and gaining those sort of things. So it would make sense for them to want to obtain these things, and to obviously for Sam in particular to have to do something horrendous in order to get his sort of personal gain. It's sort of like that morality play, isn't it? It's sort of like, yes, you can have all this millions of dollars we're going to pay you for your company, but at the same time, you've got to lay off your workforce.
Yeah.
And I mean, they try to make Sam seem less of an ogre with this, and he's sort of like, well, I was going to go and find them all jobs.
Right. I was going to give him a referral. I was going to give him a letter of recommendation. Yeah. I mean, this is the depth you get when you bring on Oscar-winning screenwriters to write your Hallmark, but not Hallmark Christmas movie. So why don't we dive into the tropes of this? Because again, this is kind of before they're established, but most of them are kind of here in one way or another. So the first being our lead in need of a lesson. Now, in this, sometimes that shifts. Sometimes it is the man or the love interest who needs the lesson. But let's talk about our lead. So it's Roma Downey playing Kathleen Russell. What is your experience with Roma Downey? Were you touched by the angel wings fan, whatever they called those angel heads?
No, the only one we got over here was Highway to Heaven, which appeared like normally on Sunday afternoon in some like random block. And because like growing up, we had 4 channels, so you would tend to just watch a lot of stuff just because it was on. So I can't like place her the same way that I can place Eric, because I grew up a big Will and Grace fan, and still am. I think it's a show that one of those shows that came back and was still just as good as when it went away. But no, I haven't really any sort of like ideas of who she was. Although I did think she was actually a good actress, even same as Eric McCormack. They're both very good leads, especially for this sort of like standard of film.
Yeah, I agree.
You don't expect them to be this level of acting. You expect them to be either looking for a way back into doing better movies or just to sort of be phoning in, and neither of them seem to really be doing either of that. So
right, yeah, no, they're giving real performances for this. Roma Downey, I don't know that I've ever actually seen her act. I never watched Touched by an Angel, but it was on for a really long time. And she's one of those celebrities who, like, she's obviously very good looking, very beautiful. She was, when I was a kid, I was big into, like, the National Enquirer. She would always be in the, like, fashion section when they were doing, like, red carpet stuff. Okay. Like, she was, like, best dressed woman of the year. Like, I think it was also just that the National Enquirer really liked her. And she's actually had a really interesting career in a lot of different ways. So Touched by an Angel ran for, I guess, about almost 10 years. And it was, I'm saying it's a huge hit. I didn't know a single person that actually watched it, but like a lot of those CBS shows here, lots of people did. She got very rich off of it. I think she was a producer on it as well. She has had, she does a lot of work. I'll say it that way. She, in I think it was 2007, married Mark Burnett, who is like a mega producer on CBS. He is the creator of Survivor and The Apprentice.
Okay, right.
So, apparently there's a lot written about that, just because there's a lot of politics that goes into all of this. She's very, very Christian and always has been and been very public about it. She also seems to not be a terrible Christian in a lot of ways, which is good. It seems like she is, one of those religious people who probably has a lot of beliefs I don't agree with, but she has not been as terrible about that as a lot of people of her ilk have been. She did produce the Ben-Hur movie from a couple of years. I don't know if you remember that big, like, giant $200 million Ben-Hur movie with all white people playing all of the parts, and it bombed terribly.
Yeah, I remember it coming out, but I don't know anyone who actually saw it.
Same. Yes. So, interesting career, interesting life. Definitely, this is the right kind of thing for her, just because it is very much probably her audience, and this was made for CBS, which I'm pretty sure is where Touched by an Angel aired, so it seems like it was very on brand, I guess. And she's good in this. She looks great. She has like a warmth about her. She's very elegant. What did you think of her actual character and kind of what were there lessons her character needed to learn?
I'm just trying to. I don't think there's lessons really for her. I mean, other than to stop being so judgy of people. But then again, I suppose Sam is also judgy, but it's kind of expected of his character because he's sort of like the rich business type. So you get the impression that he's got everything very much how he likes. He has a very sort of sterile Christmas, as it's pointed out. He likes things his own sort of way. And with her, she's kind of like the feisty counter. Because she's there, she's going to stand up and question why he does the things that she wants, and at the same time, her daughter, who's so subterranean.
Oh, we'll get to that daughter. Don't worry.
Can tell it's part of the genre this film is, but no, she's there just to be there with the overwhelming goodness that her daughter really doubles down on. But I think she has such good back and forth with Sam's character. They have this sort of like very combative, almost flirty sort of relationship right from the start. The fact that because Javier has this habit of constantly reading books when they go to bed, so she finds herself constantly stuck in Sam's room. And you have this like this wonderful banter between them where it's sort of like, well, where am I going to sleep? And it's sort of like, well, I guess I have to go and sleep in my closet. And he makes this whole deal about that he wants his pillow, but it's not that pillow, it's the other pillow. Which felt like you're a high-powered businessman and you have a pillow.
It's that very like, flirty banter that these actors I think pull. It feels like a little awkwardly done. I guess like they look great together. They play off each other well, but I also never understood them as a couple in some ways, just because like we don't really. I don't know, the way the movie is structured, it feels so much of convenience that. I don't fully buy that, they have fully fallen in love in this week and a half of being together, but they make a lot of it work. And I think she is equal in part to that. And she's, I guess, like at some point, like a character or two calls her out on not trusting people. And like, the truth is she shouldn't trust people. Like her husband is a con artist. Or her ex-husband is an actual con artist. And so she's like, yeah, I have a hard time trusting men. Yeah, you should. You have a kid. You got to take care of that kid. Don't just throw that kid into crazy situations now. So, I think it all works out for her in the end, and she ends up marrying somebody who is very rich. But still. So let's move on to our bland love interest, who I credit is not as bland as we are used to. Eric McCormick is Sam. These are usually divided into either a poor little rich boy or a widowed dad, and in this case, obviously, poor little rich boy. So tell me a little bit about Sam and what your take on him is.
Sam is very much the Scrooge-esque character of this tale. He loves his money, and as I said, he sort of lives this child-free existence where money buys him all the things that he wants, and he gets to live in this big dollhouse of a mansion, which is where he has like cooks and he has people to do everything for him. Even the house he has a designer come in and decorate it for him. So he has this sort of very sterile environment that he sort of lives in, and at the same time he feels that because he spends all this money on him that he's happy, that his money has truly brought him happy. At the same time he has kind of like the wacky best friend Dave, who sort of helps him. There's a lot of problems with Dave, but we'll come to him in a minute.
Yes, we will get to him. Yes.
Do you like 90s stereotypes, kids?
Do you miss 80s Wall Street bros?
So he is essentially that sort of Wall Street sort of bro. He's got the hair going on. He's very much like a Bret Easton Ellis yuppie, but he just happens to own a factory rather than working on Wall Street. And I mean, I know I'm supposed to not like his character, and I don't know if I said because it's played by Eric McCormick, who I obviously like as an actor, that I sort of gave him the sort of benefit of the doubt. But yeah, I thought that he's very sort of standoffish because he's not used to really having people in his life. We see him introduced with this sort of model type over Thanksgiving dinner, but she sort of disappears somewhere. I don't know.
Well, no, they do. They clarify that in the very beginning, Because this movie opens with this very clear, like, kind of, I guess this is actually a montage, I didn't think about it, but it's sort of contrasting Kathleen's Thanksgiving, which is, like, messy, but it's all family and everybody's laughing, to Sam's, where it's very sterile and he's got, his butler is serving the food and he's with this model. And then that scene, or that kind of sequence, ends with her storming out and him saying, I told you, or I think then actually we don't know what happened, but then when the next scene, he's playing racquetball with Dave and he said, I told her I don't date chicks with kids.
Right, okay. And it's really funny as well, the fact that you pointed out the fact that Roma Downey has got all these like connections to Bible projects, because when we see the opening with the giving thanks, it's to the Creator. We're not attaching it to any particular religion here.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And I think it's even like mentioned as Creator being a she as well, which is doubly
You're right.
sort of controversial.
That is fascinating. Yeah.
And I was like, oh wow, they're being like really inclusive, just in case people with different faiths want to watch Christian movies, and they can start it to whoever. But especially for her knowing her background, there's no sort of like big religious underpinnings unless we talk about Javert and him being like the moral quandary here, which is obviously play into that as well. But yeah, there's a real focus on angels rather than anything else in this one. And while she's obviously the single mother, she's got like the older friend or neighbor who sort of spends all the time looking after her daughter while she has to be at work to pay the bills and whatnot. But I think she's, as a sort of character, she's very interesting, and I think it's sort of plays up Sam's sort of foibles more. The fact, as I said, because of his life, his life is very much laid out, like a lot of the plot points in this, so laid out in that opening.
Sam has a place to go in the movie. I think with Kathleen, there isn't much of an arc, whereas Sam actually does have an arc. He has a change.
He's got emotions to feel.
And where do the emotions come from? Well, remember, the whole point is that when little Zoe says, "Did your dad love you?" Because ultimately, no, his dad didn't love him, and that's why we are where we are today with this situation. But Eric McCormick's really good in this. This came out, I guess. It looks like it came out the year before Will and Grace, but then on the trailer they say like starring Will and Grace as Eric McCormick. So it must have been like made probably as that was debuting. I don't know if he came out or if Will and Grace debuted like after this had been actually filmed. Because it is a different network. It's CBS, not NBC, which is where Will and Grace was. But like watching, it's one of these things when you watch these movies, sometimes you're like, oh yeah, that's a really good actor in that part. Like he's really good.
Because Will and Grace was 98. That started. That's
what IMDb said. It says that, but the trailer says starring Eric McCormick from Will and Grace. So I don't know.
Did they sort of like add that post?
Maybe
this is like because I don't know when the DVD came out or when this was like shown or
that's true. Yeah, that what you might be right. It could be this could have been released on probably VHS actually at that point. So I guess, and it makes sense that this wouldn't have been this like if you get cast on a sitcom, you might be doing a network movie, but it's your own network, not a different one. So it must have been they got him just before he got famous. So now let's move on. Yeah. Or did you have any more to say about Sam? Some of it's going to come up when we talk about Zoe, but did you have any more? I'm sure
we're going to fill in the blanks with Sam as we go on, because, as you said already, he has the biggest arc of this film, and I think this is where you really sort of benefit of having an actor of like Aaron McCormick's credibility, because there's so many scenes that would have been like really stupid or overplayed, and he keeps everything very much in the now. You wouldn't think that he's like in a made-for-TV movie.
Yeah, and he's very natural, and you're right, because he has to do some pretty, like, kind of dumb, light comedy, and some really, like, I'm not going to say really heavy, but he has some dramatic scenes, and he has them with a child actor, where he's doing kind of probably a lot of the work, and he's just really good. Like, I think this was probably like eye-opening for me to see that, I've always known he can do sitcom comedy. I've never seen something and been like bowled over by him, but with this, it's one of those like, oh, I get why you became a star, because you have the talent and you have the charisma for it.
Definitely, and he's always been very good at playing the straight man. Like when we look at Will and Grace, he's playing the straight guy against Jack's sort of zany energy. He sort of grounds everything. And in here, it's very much the same. It's sort of like everyone else is sort of like these zany characters, and he's sort of like the straight man who just... He's got that same talent that Rowan Atkinson has, where he can say things and they be funny. A lot of his sort of like performance lies in his dialogue and how he enunciates things rather than how he's like carrying himself. Although he does a pretty decent flirty game of Twister, so I'll give him that.
I forgot about the Twister. Let's see. So number 3 is our setting, which is typically either a big bad city, a charming small town, or a magical winter wonderland. Do we have any idea where they are? They don't ever say it, do they, or did I miss it?
It's weird. The placement's like where she lives seems to be in a city.
Yep.
It felt like I got a real sort of New York-y sort of vibe from it, but then again, everywhere to us Brits looks like New York. If it's more open urban, then it's Chicago. If it's like palm trees and sunshine, it's LA. But if it's in a city and we see snow, it's like, that must be New York. Never mind the many other cities that like New York, like Philadelphia and that. But we also have like where he lives, which seems to be it's somewhere completely different. But again, it could also be New York, because when you look at New York State, you go like 2 hours outside New York City and you're in Swan Lake, which is like full on like green trees and rednecks and full on Jewish people, as I recall from working there. So,
and yet the I'm trying to remember when they passed by his house. It's like she has picked the kid up from school, which she kind of alludes to as a bad neighborhood because she wants to move. She's trying to buy a house somewhere else. And that's when they pass by like this, gigantic mansion. So it's never really established. I think the factory itself is kind of more the setting in some ways. So we don't get that same like cute small town feel that we do in a lot of these movies, but they would learn over time. Now, number 4 is interesting because it is our dead parents or a dead wife. Now, we have a twist on that because we don't necessarily have dead parents at the first level, but we do have a dead beat dad.
Very good.
That's right. See what I did there? And importantly, we have Sam's dead dad. He's dead, right?
Yes.
Okay, because it also could have.
Yeah, he's gone. Sam has no parents. There's so many ways you can say Sam's characters are like poor little rich boy, poor little orphan rich boy,
poor little adult orphan.
He's kind of like Bruce Wayne without the play suit.
Okay.
He's not going out fighting crime. He's just enjoying his money in his big mansion.
Yep.
With his butler.
And his other staff, which we'll get to because I need to talk about his maid. It's one of these things that would change a lot, and it doesn't come up often, but you do have divorce in this movie. Which, I mean, it's the 90s, like divorce wasn't taboo by then, but it is not something that later movies would want to include as much because it comes out so negative. It's number 5, our sassy sidekick. A lot of different ways we can go with this. So tell me did you pick up on any? Were there any that you thought, that person serves this part?
Let me see. Well, we got Kathleen's sort of like mother figure, who I guess is kind of like her sassy sidekick. I believe there's a woman that she works with who's also really sassy.
The script seems to want to make her sassy, and it feels my husband like overheard that part, like when he walked in and watched it, and he's like, what did they not tell this actress like the job she's supposed to do in this movie? Because it feels like she is supposed to be like the boss is so cute, oh girl, you go get that, but like this actress is just kind of playing it straight, and it just ends up being kind of odd.
It's like, you never said these words in your life.
Exactly.
It's very sort of stereotypical sort of like 90s black best friend style acting that we're seeing here, and it's not so jarring that it sort of makes you think, oh well, that seems very sort of stereotypical. But at the same time, you can tell this is not how this actress would normally
Yeah, it
choose to
feels like
act.
it feels like this script was written for a black actress to read those words. And there's nothing wrong with writing something for a person of color, but when it feels like it is written just in order to have the person of color in that particular part as the you go girl type role, it ages strangely.
Yeah, I think this is a very sort of like 90s style writing that we're seeing here. And I think obviously like the 90s being my decade, I was born in 83. So a lot of, when it comes to like 90s cinema, I'm very kind of forgiving like a lot of people are with like 80s cinema. When you
Sure.
grow up in a decade, there's a lot of tropes and stuff, and you just like, it takes you back rather than you going, oh, well, that's really sort of jarring and offensive.
Yes.
You just, it's of its time. And I think this is something we're sort of missing now with the current generations where they don't view things of its time. It's just now either offensive or not offensive. It's like everything, it's all extremes. And I said, while her character just felt more jarringly written than offensive as a character. So
Did you have any more in the sassy sidekick part?
the only other one I could think of would be sort of Dave, who's obviously Sam's sidekick, but I wouldn't call him sassy. He's just more comedic relief.
Yeah.
But then again, according to yourself, you didn't really find him that funny. So
Well, I mean, Dave, I debated on like, is Dave a sassy sidekick or is he a villain? Like, and then it's like, no, he doesn't do anything overly. He's not effective as a villain because he doesn't have the power. But he's
No.
just kind of just such an asshole. Like, and again, this is where some of those things that just age badly is they're talking about moving the factory to Mexico, and obviously Javier is Mexican. So like, Dave says a lot of things like, wake up and smell the cafe con leche. Which, like, you're like, okay, well, I mean, okay, yeah, but it just is one more thing that just makes him such an asshole. He plays racquetball. Yeah, he's
Dave's whole role in this movie is that every time he's on the screen, it's to machine gun off how many stereotypes about the Mexican people we can reel in. So
Yep.
it's sort of like he uses like his broken Spanish, and yeah, you make like suggestions to like Mexican stereotypes, and it's Javier as a sort of character though. While he's supposed to be like this client that's supposed to be impressed, he's so much of like a down to earth family man, and the fact he wants to be like do all these sort of like family things when he's hanging around the family home. He's not the sort of standoffish ogre that you would expect from his character.
Oh no, and I wouldn't put him in sassy sidekick. I'm going to move him later down the list.
No, and the fact that he seems almost bemused by half the things that Dave comes out with.
True.
Dave is that weird character because he's not, as I said, he's not a villain. He's the one who's trying to keep Sam on goal, as in the goal that they've decided where to sell the company. But as I say, he doesn't fall into a villainous role. There isn't really even a villainous character in this, which is what sort of surprised me. We have people who sort of like hang around the fringes of villainous, but no one really commits to it.
I would say there is one more candidate for sassy sidekick, and it's really just because of the amount of face acting this woman does. The maid, I think her name is Annie.
Oh, yes, of course.
And Annie, like, I feel like when she got this part and she said, okay, I need to research American Housekeeper, because this is very clearly filmed in Canada. Where do I go? Where can I find a character like that? Oh, who is the most famous television housekeeper in American television history? Alice from the Brady Bunch. And she's just doing Alice. Like, all she is doing, what her face does is just constantly, like, just twisting itself into weird little beats for every scene, and it's a little bit Ann B. Davis. So I have no problem with that because I enjoy a good Ann B. Davis impression. I just did not expect to find one here. Now, number 6 is the villain. So sometimes an evil woman, sometimes a evil boss. So yeah, I mean, there are more characters, I guess, of bad nature than you normally get in these movies, because we do have the ex-husband, who also makes a lot of, like, kind of weird comments that today feel very racist. And there is the let me see, as manager, business manager. I guess, yeah, I don't know what Dave's job actually was. But I was disappointed because I love a villainous woman in these movies, and I thought there was going to be the opportunity to have one. Who is, okay, in the first, the kind of makeover montage, there is a woman there dressed in a very, like, bright green, yellow suit, and she seems very strict and stiff. What is her role in this household? Who is she?
She seems to be like a publicist for Sam, which would be weird because he's not like a celebrity, but she seems to be all about his image.
Image, yeah.
But she disappears.
I thought she was going to be there. I was into it. I liked her, the fact that she was wearing heels on carpet, and I wanted to see how to do that. Because Zoe says to her, like, does your face hurt? Like, because I guess she's pinching her face. Again, Zoe's a little shit, but we'll get to that. But yeah, I was disappointed because I thought we were going to have a kind of, wild corporate woman, but she doesn't last.
No, and I think the only reason she's included in that start is just purely because would you trust Dave to come up with the styling of anything?
Yeah, that's fair. That's a very good point.
But her sort of role is really taken over by Kathleen. Because Kathleen sort of like looks at the house and sort of like, well, this was a family home. You would have board games and a roaring fire. Because nothing like a big open fire when you've got small children around.
That makes sense, yeah.
And she's sort of like constantly styling, and we have the making over the house montage where she's there like guiding things, and they're just weird. Where do they get these things from? Is there like a big warehouse that you can wheel in props to like impress
Maybe that's
your
what his
family?
factory makes. His factory just makes props for fake families.
That's the
and it's a big business in Mexico, hence why he's going to move it there. That does lead us right into the montage, because there's kind of two that I clocked. Do you want to talk about the first one, which is the kind of we're moving in montage?
Yeah, it's very much it's everything of like the 80s or early 90s sort of montage is. The only thing that they don't really do is sort of like have like some funky sort of like electro pop sort of tune playing in the background. It's
just like instrumental, and it goes on. They didn't know back then that montages are supposed to be set to Christmas carols that are public domain, but they'd learn.
Yes, and basically it just involves a lot of furniture being brought in, them changing basically everything, and a lot of cushions.
A lot of cushions, yeah.
Cushions are always important when you're changing over things, and also in the Screenwriting 101s, cushions imply a feminine touch. Because apparently...
I was thinking the same thing.
Women love cushions.
Bitches love cushions. It's what we do. Yeah, I wrote down cushions, but I didn't make the connection. But as soon as you started saying it, I'm like, you're right. That's the way movies think you establish a woman lives here. Women love pillows. No, we don't. I don't like pillows. I sleep with one pillow, and half the time I like want to throw it away. But this idea that like women just we love pillows. We see a room has one pillow. That's not a room for me. We need 7 pillows on that room. Yeah. And so I appreciate kind of how on the nose that was, and how perhaps ahead of its time it was in that way as well. Then there's another montage very shortly after that, after like the first day has gone well, so it's what I called the day 2 montage. Did you clock that one? I don't remember what music it was to.
Because the whole montage, it felt like everyone was sort of like being sort of done over, and they were sort of like wheeled out, ready.
Yep.
It was all like in one go, because they, as I said, they change her hair because she has the sort of Andy McDowell frizzy look of the working mom, which I always thought was like, no, that's the look you go with. Yeah. Instead, they straighten her hair out and they give her the updo, and Zoe is given the sort of like posh dress, and we get more sass off her because that's apparently her character arc in this.
We'll get there.
And the fact that they wheel in like all these toys and stuff, everything's so brand new, and we're led to believe that like he's going to come in and just like not question by the fact that everything is so new and clean and nothing's like covered in a million stains.
It's also just a weird thing to do. Like, hello, I am making a business deal with you. Yes, I will spend the entire week of Christmas in your house. That's a very...
because he's a family man. So he's like...
Then why doesn't he have his own family? then why is he just kind of choosing another family to be a family man too? I don't think it works that way. But again, rich people can do whatever they want, so it is different. Number 8 is slapstick. I don't know. Do you think this movie had any slapstick?
Verbal slapstick, I guess. I mean, we get to see some skating antics.
There's a lot of what I call the whoa, whoa, whoa on ice, where somebody is skating and they go, whoa, 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 and then they fall. Yep.
And that also, we get to see Javier get to show his angel powers, because Kathleen's sort of like, I never fall over, and he's like, are you sure?
Sprinkle sound effect. It's a weird thing. I don't understand if he's an angel or not. So there's definitely antics on ice. One of the first thing that happens, this is early on in the film, Dave, I think it's when Javier like first comes to the house, and Dave like walks down the stairs and just falls down the stairs. Like, it's just there. There's no reason for it. There's a game of Twister, as you mentioned earlier. So
yes,
obviously Twister is going to involve falling. And then there's like, so this kid's 7, and you know, like 7-year-olds can obviously vary wildly in terms of like how much they understand things and don't. But I don't know if this is so much slapstick as it goes into when we talk about the kid, but her like the scene where she just decides to like destroy his study, where she has taken out his cigars and clipped all of them. And then when he's like, dude, that cost a lot of money, she picks up like a water gun and squirts it at him. Or not a water gun, but it's like a seltzer kind of, I guess, like what SodaStream was for rich people in the 90s. And like squirts it out, water everywhere. He's got documents there. Like, that's a shitty thing for a kid to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, she sort of takes over his office and starts messing with all his things. And of course, it sort of like destroys the cigars because smoking's bad for you. And he's sort of like, those were Cuban cigars, because you know he's a rich man, so he's got to have like the fine cigars, but he just keeps them in a box, not humidor or like any sort of like proper setup for his cigars. But it's I guess it's a little bit slightly. It didn't really sort of stand out to me, because normally we have like that sort of like dumb villainous character who can be like punched in the nuts or fall over.
True.
Like a klutz of a character, but there never seems to be that at all. We just sort of like have sort of like these wholesome moments of people falling over or falling into each other, because that's flirtation 101.
That's what creates chemistry.
We also have that scene where he like looks out over his balcony, and we get to see the family moment unfolding, and she's making popcorn on the fire.
Yes.
Which I think again is a very American thing, because we don't do that over here.
I feel like it was a big thing that was like in the 90s, that was a way you made popcorn, like if you were cool. Kind of like the hipster way of doing popcorn was to get like the Jiffy Pop is one of the things like that. If you've seen Scream, the opening of Scream when she's making on the stove, like we never did that. We had a microwave. That was the way most people, Americans, do things. Now, number 9 is our sage old person. And I think there's kind of two that fit this. You mentioned the neighbor who is important for establishing what angels are, right? Because she explains to Zoe, when you hear music and no one's there, that's an angel.
Oh, and feathers.
And yes.
Because angels wear their wings on the inside when they're on Earth. And it's sort of, they really sort of lean into this whole angel thing. It's sort of like, strange. He had feathers in his room, and it's like, that's from his pillowcase. And it's like, okay.
Well, and that moves into Javier, who again, like, seems to have no family, even though he's a family man. We've talked a lot about how he is this strange mythical creature. It's such a weird decision to just not make him like an angel, but make him an angel. Because at the end of the movie, so the movie ends, or it ends like, okay, everybody's happy, clearly these two are in love, Zoe's cool with it, great. And then you get kind of like the camera pans over, and to me it was like supposed to be 1 year later, but it doesn't say 1 year later. And it's like Zoe's like now clearly living in the big house, and like she hears a jingle or hears music and like runs to the window to see Javier's limo drive by. It stops. Javier gets out of the car. He like tips his hat to Zoe, and then he gets back in the car and drives away. And then the movie ends. What the fuck was that?
Yeah, also, it's a town car, which is, we've all seen Needful Things. The devil rolls in a town car.
Yep, you're right.
Javier he's an angel in the same way that Cenobites are an angel. It's like angel to some, demons to others, because he plays the same sort of like bargainist sort of deals. As we mentioned already, like everything hinges on the choices that Sam is going to make, and he is going to present these choices to him. Like, which path are you going to choose? Are you going to choose like the noble, honest choice where you won't sell your company and you won't put everyone out in the street, or are you going to take the bad choice? Bad choice is money, and you're going to sell your industry. And it just doesn't fit into the sort of trope. I mean, the only sort of angelic things that he could be seen as doing is the fact that he's like creating family wholeness by having them like be forced together, and this creates this sort of big brother romance between Sam and Kathleen. Big Brother obviously being the TV show, not the 1984 version. So that's has this sort of intense things that he creates these sort of situations, sort of like, I see you're under mistletoe, so you must have this really heated makeout scene, which makes me think that Eric and Roma were actually kind of into each other, because they seem to have a lot of pent up.
You're around that kid all day. You need to get it out somehow.
And we have that scene when they go ice skating, and we have the potential love interest for him, and he's sort of like, it's another Faustian bug. It's sort of like, do you choose the hot blonde or the single mother? Which one are you going to choose? These choices are constantly being presented to Sam, and she comes over and it's sort of like, oh, you didn't want to go and check that out? And it's like, no, it's not my thing. Yeah. Not my thing. And it's like, and she's like, oh, what is your thing now? And what's he really going to say? He's all like, oh, hot single mums is my thing now. It's like,
it's an interesting choice, I will say that. Number 10 is Santa Claus, and again, we don't get Santa Claus, but maybe we do get Santa Claus, because I also thought, I guess he's also kind of Santa Claus, because he does, again, this magical angel that gets Zoe what she wants, right? Her dad, like, she has closure with her dad, and now she lives in this giant doll house, so life turned out well for her.
There is actually no Father Christmas sort of character, Santa Claus character in this, because normally you have like a mole Santa or something.
No, you're right.
And the film like actively avoids having anything like that at all. There's not even like in the background or anything. We have like sort of very non-generic sort of decorations, but there is no sort of like Santa Claus character in this. It's very much like the focus on angels here, which makes it weird because we're not mentioning God here, we're mentioning Creator.
And I will, to jump ahead in the bonus round, number 4 is product placement. And I'm going to say, I think this movie was in part just a giant commercial for Touched by an Angel. Again, I've never watched Touched by an Angel. I don't know what it's actually about. I know it's about angels. I know it stars Roma Downey. And I think this movie, because I don't know if you remember this or if this was the same in England. Angels were really big in the 90s in the US. There were this like series of jewelry. I'm trying to think what the equivalent today would be. Like it was sort of like the way like maybe you get your mother every year like a birthstone necklace or something like that. Like there were like these angel pins that people would get, and you would get like somebody's birthstone for it, or if somebody was a ballerina, you'd get them the angel ballerina series of pins. Like it was a big thing, and I part of it was probably the show, and the show was successful, but I really do think that this movie, starring CBS's Roma Downey of Touched by an Angel, that's all about angels and not Santa Claus. Like Santa Claus would sort of like confuse the messaging, I think, if you had him here as well. So I do think in terms of product placement, like this movie very much is just selling, like, you like angels? Do you like angels? Because every Sunday night at 8 o'clock, you can get more angels. You can even get touched by an angel. That's my theory.
Yeah, the trouble is when Touched by an Angel has been forever ruined by Family Guy, where they did the joke where the angel's in the stand and is sort of like, and now we tend to Touched by an Angel, and it's like, okay, little Jimmy, where do you touch you? And he's like, I'm a freaking angel.
Yep, that'll do it.
That has forever ruined Hereditary. But yeah, I get obviously what you say. For myself, I mean, I remember Angels being more things like the early 2000s. We had things like Angel Cards, and it was all in the spirituality section of Borders where I was working. So I remember them more then. I remember like Birthstones and Crystal Healing. That was more of a thing over here in like the 90s. So I don't think Angels had such a foothold here. So
interesting. Yeah. And I wonder out there if like other people remember this or if it's specifically, I think it was very, marketed very heavily to women, and even younger, like both younger women and probably like older women that were the targets for these kinds of things. But we'll circle back now. So we're in the bonus round. The first part is the music, which is very often public domain songs, very typically the same public domain holiday songs that are in the public domain, like Hark the Herald Angels Sing, Deck the Halls, Jingle Bells. Did these songs show up in this movie? Yes, they did.
I'm going to tell you, the soundtrack just felt like so... it didn't really even register. It felt like very sort of like generic made-for-TV movie music. So I didn't even register like there was Christmas music. It was
there wasn't as much as there could have been. Yeah, and then a lot of the instrumental score in the last act when it was all the dramatic scenes. My God, that score was working hard. It was very like this. This is the era of the TV movie. And when people think of like a sappy TV movie, this is the score you think of completely. But let's see. Number 2 is our secret family recipe or needlessly complicated holiday cocktails. I don't understand who's doing does anybody cook in this or it's always the cooks that are cooking?
I believe there's some Mexican biscuits that she makes.
Okay. Yes, you're right. There was the Mexican wedding cookies.
That's right, that she makes. And Javier also does some cooking because he makes
a
Mexican dish, which of course we have to have be too spicy for Sam.
White people.
I also love the fact that when they have these like scenes, they're eating in like the actual kitchen. They've got this big sort of dining room setup that they eat, but when they're having like the wholesome family moments, they're back in the kitchen.
That's how you know things have changed.
The kitchen as well seems to be a completely different set to the rest of the house.
Yes, you are right. You are correct.
So it doesn't seem like it feels like it doesn't fit in with this house at all. It feels like from the opening where we've got like the crazy Thanksgiving scene. It seems like that's where they are rather than in the big mansion.
Yep, good point.
But that's, as far as I'm aware, is the only sort of cooking we have here. Everything else is done by the chef, really, isn't it?
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Now, number 3 is the small business in danger. Now, it's a bit of a twist, right? It's a business that's getting bigger, but is going to be selling out. And we don't know what they do or what they make. But your theories to everybody are all welcome. I want to know what we're missing there.
Boxes.
No, they're like, I think that was just the packaging, right? Because there's like the different, obviously like a factory is doing different parts of the process of manufacturing. And it looked like she was over in the packaging part of it, not the manufacturing part of it, but we don't know what's in the box, man. Number 4, we already said product placement. This whole movie is a secret advertisement for Touched by an Angel. Number 5, we have come to the cloying child.
Oh, geez.
So, now this actress, she looks so familiar to me. And I know I realize exactly what I knew her from is she's in The Sweet Hereafter, which is also a Canadian movie, which is a fantastic movie. And she doesn't have a big part in it, but her face and her hair is very recognizable because she's like the girl in the back of the school bus who presses her face against the school bus and waves and then dies a horrible death. And immediately I made that connection. And look, Sarah Rosen Fruitman, she had a career in Canada for a while. I think she stopped acting in 2001 was her last credit. I don't know. I hope she's doing well. I'm not going to say put any of this on her as an actor. Like, she was probably like 9 when she did this movie. You can only be directed so much when you're 9. It's more everything about Zoe. Zoe, 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 and I'll keep saying Zoe because the movie says her name about 750 times over the course of 90 minutes. Tell me what you thought about Zoe.
She's a precocious little soul, isn't she? Her whole thing is that when she gets in her own way, when she doesn't get her own way, because she gets her own way all the time, her go-to thing is to climb a tree, leading her mother to go, Zoe, don't climb that tree.
Zoe, 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 Zoe. Yeah. So yeah, like the second scene of the movie, we see her like, it's like her way of throwing a tantrum is to like scale like a 30-foot tree. And then, wouldn't you know, 85 minutes into the movie, this weird habit of hers comes back. And I'm like, is that a thing that kids do? Do kids like stress climb? Like, because like she's presented as like, I don't know, like just a 7-year-old kid who's a little clumsy, a little emotional because she does have a deadbeat dad. Like life hasn't been easy for her. But like it's this thing that she does. Like, oh no, sometimes she runs out and climbs gigantic trees. And to this scene, I tried to like record a little bit of it. I'll see if I can put it on Instagram because the scene where she scales this tree, where her stunt double then scales the tree, is then stuck up this tree, is dangling from the tree, had me laughing so hard. And I had to rewind it about 4 times because it to me was the greatest thing I have seen in a very long time.
Yeah, you messaged me, so like before we came on today, you messaged me with the like all captures like this finale, and it really brought to mind. I said this whole, as I was saying to you before we came on, and like it brings to mind this whole theory I had while I was watching this because this isn't as comedic as the Good Son, which we also watched together. Like,
oh my god, I got such Good Son vibes from this. Yeah, yep.
Where at the end, the big finale is that you have these 2 children fighting on the edge of a cliff, but because the children is unintentionally hysterical.
Yep.
And that's even before we get to like the 2 children hanging off the edge of a cliff. Sophie's choice moments that movie
God, I love
goes
the Good
with.
Son.
It's another of those movies that you introduced me to, and it's a wonderful time we had talking about that.
It is such a wrong movie. The Good Son is like on every level. It is an inappropriate movie, and yet it's wonderful for all the wrong reasons.
Oh my god, Snark! There's so many like snarkcasters out there who bash Macaulay Culkin's performance like that whole movie, but it's such a good bad seed movie.
It is,
and he is good in it.
Yeah. And all the stuff behind it of how, like, he wanted to do it as an actor, but then also, like, he starts filming it, and he's like, this is kind of, like, my favorite thing is the dangling off the cliff scene was a stunt, but it, like, involved some stuff that he was, like, kind of freaked out doing. And he's like, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do it. And the director was like, I need this kid to do this. And so Macaulay Culkin's dad was like, Macaulay, if you do this scene, I will buy you a BB gun. And that was the thing that got Macaulay Culkin to do that scene, which is so even better in the context of The Good Son, where, like, the sociopathic kid has a BB gun and does terrible things with it. So, yes. Now, I wish Zoe had a Macaulay Culkin in this movie. I wish Zoe was like the Elijah Wood who then met up with an evil child that like could make her life hell. Because this little spoiled, again, like I know that she's not spoiled. Like the family is kind of presented as not having a lot of money, but like this kid is a fucking spoiled brat.
She is. She doesn't seem like she's lacking for anything. No. I mean, she obviously has the single mother home life, but at the same time, she's not exactly lacking. The family don't seem like they're lacking in funds because her mother's obviously working hard at the factory, producing the WMDs.
Yes, exactly. It pays well, surprisingly.
So and at the same time, you also get the feeling that she's never really been told no because everything that she's done is seen as being so charming by the people in her life.
Zoe.
And so you get it. I mean, I understand, if you've obviously just been raised around adults, you're an only child, then you would have this sort of confidence speaking to adults.
Yes,
but at the same time, she has no filter.
Yeah.
So and this obviously being 97, so obviously Macaulay Culkin's Home Alone's come out. And since then, they're all chasing to try and find who's going to be that to like get that sort of same child star performance. We saw with like Flora Birch, you mentioned already, Elijah Wood, and she is nowhere near the standard of those actors.
She has like emotional scenes later in the movie where she's talking about like that her dad has left and not coming back. And, she asks such questions as, do you think if I wasn't so clumsy, Daddy wouldn't have left? And my favorite, maybe I'm just not lovable. And of course I'm pausing it and I'm like, no, exactly. You're not. You're awful. But she does, of course.
Of Cassie Erin McCormack, because you have lines like this where it's sort of like, "Do you think I'm a klutz?" And he's giving like this Oscar-winning performance.
Yeah,
like,
no, anybody would love you. It's okay. People fall. People drop things. That's also the big scene that does play out later, because the whole Eric McCormack opens up and says like, "Well, my dad didn't love me because I wasn't good at baseball. All right, my dad was a sports guy, and I couldn't catch a fly ball. And one day he took me out, and he hit fly balls all day long, and I just wanted to catch one, and I just couldn't, and I couldn't, and I hit my glove, but I still didn't catch it." That comes back at the end of the movie, because remember, she has scaled a 30-foot tree. She is dangling from a branch, and for whatever reason, I don't think you caught that, but it was a callback. Because then Eric.
So caught up in like the finale because
it's a big
we need that life bond moment.
Yes.
And normally in these situations, as I was saying to you before, like the kid would be hanging off a dam or fall into a river or meet a rabid bear or there'd be some danger that she's rescued from by Sam, and that creates a life bond. But at this point, they've either run out of money, the budget's not there, resources aren't there. Whatever reason, but obviously Ted Kotcheff is like a studio guy. All you do, you give him a script, he'd go out and he'd get the job done. And what have I got? Got a tree.
All right.
go climb up the tree. But I didn't think him catching her, because he has that wonderful monologue about how he weren't able to catch it because the glove was too big. And it's sort of like, and when he gets the baseball glove at the end, when they do
he's ever gotten.
And it's sort of like, and this is again just ruined by The Simpsons, because I remember that when Homer goes to the bachelor party, he's sort of like, "Little Eli, give me his baseball glove." It's like, it's so cliche in my mind, the fact he's getting a baseball glove.
Well, and I don't know. I think it would be really hard to catch a kid from 30 feet in the air. Because we see the point of view of where she is, and she's looking down, and there's it's not just empty field. There's all this other tree branch where no, she's going to let go, and she's going to bounce off 7 different parts of that tree. But no, she falls right into his arms, of course, because of the nature of this movie. But physics should not let her trust him. And also, if I'm Zoe, I'm like, no, I know you can't catch. Your dad doesn't love you because you're really bad at this. So why should I trust you now? But she falls and he catches her, and it's fine. Because
it's the soothing tone of Aaron McCormack, where he's sort of like, "Don't worry, Zoe, I'll catch you," and it's like, "Oh, I totally trust you, Aaron McCormack."
So I have one more question on Zoe. Because I watched this with subtitles on just because it's easier and then I catch things. And I was very confused by what is Santa's second reindeer's name? Do you remember this bit when they were doing the ice skating? And she's like, "That's Donner." She's like, "That's Donder." And the other character's like, "No, it's Donner." She's like, "No, the Donner party ate each other," which I guess they thought was a cute line to give to a kid. But isn't it Donner? It's not Donder. There's no reindeer with it.
It's on Donner, on Prancer, yeah.
Donner, like the Donner Party, not Donder, rhyming with ponder, right?
No, it's Donder. No, it's definitely Donner. Because I've seen Santa Claus the movie, and I've seen them do the names and stuff.
Okay,
if you think of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, it's on Donner, on Vixen, on
No,
Prancer.
I think there's a second D in this word. So I just Googled, and as I started Googling it auto-Googled up and said reindeer names, Donder or Donner. And it seems like...
Is it a silent D, though?
I don't know. The original poem, they write it differently. They write it as Dunder. This is like the new Berenstein Bears, apparently. Oh wow, the internet doesn't agree. So this needs more research. I will take this to. I have a friend who's a librarian. I'm going to make her do this for me and figure it out because I'm wildly confused now. But it bugged me and I knew I needed to double check that. So that's Zoe. We hate her, right?
Oh yeah,
just about it.
She is awful, but she's awful in the way you kind of expect old children to be in these movies.
Yeah.
So
it's actually refreshing because I didn't really get many kids yet this year, so I kind of like when I get the full enchilada in one. Oh yeah, she makes up for it very much. Number 6, finding the perfect tree. We don't have the scene of them going and getting a tree, but we do have Roma Downey giving us the important lessons on how a tree should be decorated if it's a family tree. Now, do you agree with that?
Yes.
Do you put apples on your tree?
I don't put apples on my tree, but looking at my tree here, which I won't show you because my lounge is a mess. It's basically like 500 decorations because the kids have to put every single decoration on every single branch. So there's a lot going on, and we're also the sort of family where we have decorations for certain years. So we've got like the cuddly coronavirus on there. We've got Kevin the carrot on there. We've got all these things that we've collected over the years that mark out particular years that we've
That's what I love about Christmas.
built for the family. So
yeah, we can't have a tree for a while until our cats grow out of the phase of seeing something that is big and clearly dangerous and deciding to climb into it and knock it down. So maybe one day.
Enjoyed the Chronicle of the Magically Shrinking Tree.
Yes.
Yes,
it's so far stood now. Now it's been, only got knocked down twice as far as we know. So not bad for 3 days so far. Let's see. 7, empty coffee cup acting. Did you clock any? I actually don't know that I did. But this is also the 90s. We didn't have Starbucks cups in the 90s. We weren't walking around with our cardboard so much.
I think there is one scene where they're drinking coffee, and it's very clearly there's nothing in those cups.
Okay. Better eyes than me.
But no, there is no like takeout coffee or anything like that.
Not as egregious as some other movies would do.
No, we're not in the franchise coffee era yet. So
yes, no. We need time on that. You're right. 8, actors trying hard not to actually eat on camera. Again, like we don't really see meals. Like we see like the beginnings of meals, but less so the actual dining and like trying to talk around putting the fork in your mouth. But number 9 is a big one. Our Canadianisms, or signs that the movie was not filmed wherever it was supposed to be filmed and set. So again, for all we know, this movie is set in Canada, right? They never actually say it's not. But did you clock any Canadianisms in here?
Nothing really sort of stood out, but again, it's not a small town vibe that we're going for in this one, so it doesn't really get the chance to see. I mean, certainly the tree and the area surrounding the mansion seems more Canadian than anything that we see on the inner city, and I think this is where the film sort of like gets to skirt around it, because a lot of the shots are either inside the factory or we're inside the mansion.
Yep.
We get very few shots outside. The
True.
only sort of shots we get outside is like the finale, the ice skating sequence, and the introduction sort of shots.
Sure.
Everything else is sort of like, it could be anywhere, really, but it doesn't feel overly Canadian.
There are 2 things that stuck out to me. One is there's actually a very funny scene, maybe about, 15 minutes into the movie, when Dave or Dan, the business friend, Dave has like arranged for an actress and a child actor to play his family, and it's kind of funny just because the kid's kind of a shit, and that's enjoyable to me. But the woman playing his mother or his wife, they're talking about like, hey, what's for dinner? And she just looks right at Eric McCormick and says, hey, my agent didn't say anything about making dinner. And it's just like the as Canadian a line reading as you can like jokingly summon. So that made me happy. And the other thing was just one of those. So the actress who plays the neighbor who tells us about angels, Bridget, Barbara Gordon is her name, not Barbara Gordon of, Gotham, or not that we know. I looked at her, I'm like, she looks really familiar. I'm sure I've seen her in a million things. What has she been in? And the first thing that she's known for is Cube 2. And I feel like if you have an actor that was in a Cube movie, that is also one of those immediate signs that you were a Canadian production.
Very true.
Number 10, warm weather watch. So we're not outside often, but when we are, I don't see many gloves.
It's very fake-looking snow.
Very fake-looking, yes.
Especially outside the mansion, that's where the snow's fake. They cover it very well in the ice skating sort of sequence because apparently everything has been built on the ice. Like the coffee stand.
Yep.
There's all that's not that they have really is like a fence that's randomly also on the ice. Yeah,
is that what outdoor ice rinks are like? Like it's just little space in the middle of everything that you crowdedly skate next to people on?
I just know the big rinks because we don't really have like skating on lakes and stuff because you don't get cut off. So we have like
you've seen the good sun. That's why you know what can happen.
Yeah, I've seen the good sun. So we just have like these pop-up rinks, and it's normally you have like the rink, which is basically the same as like a roller rink, but it's ice.
Right.
And then everything's at the side. So normally we don't build like the coffee shop in the middle of the rink. So
yeah. I was afraid that ice was going to melt because everybody looked like nobody was wearing gloves, or if they were, they kept taking them off. They weren't wearing like heavy coats. I'm like, it's got to be pretty warm for the way they're dressed. Let's see now, number 11, old people aggressively matchmaking. We kind of have, again, like Javier is clearly sprinkling some Christmas magic to manipulate some things, but yeah, that's probably about the extent of it, I guess.
Does her mother type figure, does she say something about her being picky about men or about the deadbeat ex? Or...
Yeah, well, in the beginning, she's kind of like, because Zoe is very much saying how much, I wish my dad was here. And because that's why at one point I didn't think they were divorced. I thought he was abusive because I can't remember if it's Kathleen or the neighbor who says like, sometimes when people go away, it's a good thing. Sometimes you don't want them back. And I'm thinking like,
Kathleen who said that,
yeah,
so.
I'm like, that's pretty fucking dark. Like, is he going to show up? And he's like, what did he do to this family? But no, he's just a like con artist, basically.
He's a weird certain character as well to provide the threat for the film, because he's sort of like the one who could like basically
blow
derail
the whistle
the
on
whole
everything.
thing.
Yeah.
And he's introduced as this comedic sort of klutz because he's a former pro golfer who's trying to get back on the tour and now has the sideline where he's hustling.
And I was so
golfers.
Confused by that scene because I think that was right around the point where I had like stopped it and then came back to it like the next day. And so I turned this movie on and it's like, why am I on a golf course? Is that Eric McCormack? Is he playing like business golf? What is going on here? I got so confused.
So, and he sort of like turns up, and the most evil thing that he does is basically try to blackmail money out of Sam. And he's then just become such an afterthought because Sam's sort of like, fine, I will pay you money to go away. And then he even like, because Zoe gets really upset because she thinks that, she's done all these good things. So her father's going to turn up, and he like, apparently knows where this deadbeat dad's going to be. So he
gets the address from Bridget. He does get the address from the lady.
And the dad sort of like introduced himself as a plainclothes police officer to the staff of the mansion.
to face acting maid, to Ann B. Davis, Minnie.
What's he investigating? Nobody knows. Nobody asks.
Right.
But as I said, he's played so for like laughs that he's not like a threat at all. He just basically turns up to be sort of like friend to derail everything.
Yeah.
But he's such an afterthought in this film, and the fact that Zoe is sort of like, oh, my daddy's an astronaut. She's got this whole spiel where he is, and I was surprised that Sam sees through this, so he doesn't go like to Kathleen and sort of like, oh, I heard your husband's an astronaut, that's why he went away, and then she reveals the truth. It's sort of like he knows already that Zoe's full of it.
It seems very obvious. I think he also probably is looking at this kid like, you're not smart enough for your dad to be an astronaut. Between if you're the product of Kathleen, who seems very intelligent, like, no, you got a lot of this from your dad. I think that's where his head is. Let's see, the last one, our favorite fashion moment of the movie. There is some style going on. Again, it's very 90s. There's a few, I thought, things that Kathleen wears that stood out to me. I love her outfit in like the last scene is this kind of white pantsuit with a like bedazzled blazer. I'm like, not many people could pull that off. Roma Downey can pull off a lot. I think she's very chic. I think she was a model too. She's not overly tall, but I believe she modeled in her past. And I thought that outfit was very like, ooh, that's a good Christmas outfit for a movie. Anything stand out to you, fashion-wise?
In the fashion-wise, I think Javier has got all the best outfits.
Yeah.
He's a very sort of like fashionable, well-dressed man. Sam for the period isn't overly sort of hipster. If anything, he's got sort of like the Michael Douglas hair back of that era where he was sort of like the devilish rogue Michael Douglas.
Oh yeah, I mean it's Basic Instinct Michael Douglas hair. You're right.
Yeah. This is like you said, Basic Instinct, Black Rain, back when he was devilish rogue before he transitioned into his like men of power sort of status that he sort of went into. And as I said, there's nothing sort of like stands out, especially for like the 90s. There's no sort of like really sort of like bold 90s fashions at all. We don't even have like the red and green for the cover.
Oh, you're right. We do not.
The titles are in red and green, but no one on the cover, as thrown together as this cover is.
Oh, this cover is such a piece of art.
With the angel couple.
Oh, God. Yeah, you have people. Please go and look at the poster art for this movie, because you're right. It is the font. Wow, I'm just looking, like realizing it so much now. The font. So you have three names billed above the credits, obviously: Roma Downey, Eric McCormack, and Hector Elizondo. And their first names are in green. Their last names are in red. Borrowed is in green. Hearts is in red. Two different fonts within Borrowed and Hearts. Then you have this big angelic overglow over Roma Downey and Eric McCormack, and they're like cheek to cheek but staring at the camera. You have little ice skater Zoe, and then a Christmas tree. And photoshopped in the front corner is like, does Hector Elizondo wear that outfit in the movie? He's wearing kind of is that a beret? And like casual.
It seems to be they seem to have like took it out. That actually seems to be the shot from when they got ice skating where he's watching them.
Maybe. Because
Zoe is in the ice skating outfit.
Yep.
And then we got the house, which looks like the Amityville house.
It does. It totally does. And that opening when she's playing with that dollhouse. Oh, your mind went the same place, right? Amityville Dollhouse, which is one of the best Amityville movies. Oh.
Well, it's very Land of the Giants, isn't it? Where we've got her big head, like looking for.
Yes.
As soon as I saw the dollhouses, like anything like dollhouses, it links me think yourself because and these dollhouses are horror nonsense.
Yeah, and I mean that's one thing. Oh yeah, one thing on this movie that is, I think, again, a sign of a little more filmmaking prowess than you see in movies today of this ilk, is that you do have some like cool shots with the dollhouse. Like the final scene where like the house itself transitions to a dollhouse and then pulls out to her playing with the dollhouse. Like there's filmmaking going on here. It's kind of strange to see.
It's Dollhouse is always very sort of weird when they're in these sort of like comedic sort of dramas, and the fact that they obviously pull out to her playing with the dollhouse, is this all been in her head at the same time? I thought that too.
Yep, I wonder that. I was like, is she? Yeah.
It's like that Jennifer Garner movie. Was it 16 going on 30 or something?
13 going on 30.
Where 13 going on 30, where she ultimately ends up living in her dollhouse at the end.
Oh. I've actually
you look at the she ends up in like the Barbie dream house at the end of the film.
Oh.
And it's sort of like while she's supposed to like age ahead, she never leaves these sort of like childhood sort of notions behind. So she lives in like the Barbie dream house of that world.
Sounds really dark. Interesting.
If you've never seen it, it certainly didn't end the way I thought it was. But especially for one of those sort of movies where you have someone either like go back to being like a child or from a child.
Right. Usually they always end with the resolution of like, oh, we're back to normal, but it's a little better.
Yeah. They normally like revert back.
Interesting.
But in that one, it doesn't. She forever remains in this jumped ahead adult state.
And again, I think there is an argument to be made that Borrowed Hearts, that you can be read in that same way. Because the end of the last shot, like, it's just from Zoe's point of view, and she is playing with a dollhouse, and there's like a mama, a daddy, baby, and like she looks out the window, and there is the devil driving away in his town car, and that was apparently her needful thing, and perhaps that's where it ends, and maybe her mother died in that tree as well. We don't know. There's a lot you can read in there. So tell me, do you recommend this movie, and who would you recommend it to?
This movie, I mean, I had this on while I was sorting stuff out in the lounge, so it was good sort of background. I think if I had sat down and just like focused on this, then it would have driven me nuts. But it's sort
fair.
of like very sort of festive viewing. It's very sort of easy to get into, and within 5 minutes, you will have worked out exactly all the moves this film is going to make. You know that how things are going to resolve themselves, and you know pretty much how it's going to get to that point. The only things that it sort of like throws in and sort of like twist is obviously with the character of Javier, who sort of like throws in the thing. But I mean, it's a Christmas movie, and I think I've said to you before is that you're very sort of like forgiving when it comes to Christmas movies. There's things you accept with a Christmas movie that you won't accept with other films of this sort of like standards. You're more forgiving, and it's sort of like the wholesomeness, like makes your heart grow 5 times, and you just enjoy.
You don't want a movie about Dave and about Dave saying Dave by the end of this film. Like, you want it about Sam evolving. You are right about the sitting down to watch this, because I did that because I have to sit there with my notes and meticulously rewind. And I did find this was one of those movies where I, stopped it at a certain point because I had to get up and get some water. And when I did, I said to myself, oh shit, I still have an hour left. And then I kept watching, and then decided, okay, I'm done. I'm going to finish it tomorrow. I'm going to go to bed, thinking I was at I only had 20 minutes left. And I pause it, and it was, oh no, you have 45 minutes left. You have only watched this movie for 45 minutes. So it is, there's something about the pacing of it that feels very gummy and very slow. It wasn't, sometimes these kind of fly by. This one does not, even though it's the same length as every other one of these movies. But that being said, Eric McCormick's great. Roma Downey is doing exactly what she should be doing in this movie. For people that I think are curious about, in terms of putting this in context with these movies today, it's really interesting to see how they evolved and how this was kind of an early example of, okay, we're going to make we have certain talent attached to a movie. We can do something. We know the demographic. We know we're going for women. We know we're going for families of a certain age. We know that people over 50 are going to love this. And you can kind of see the different things working here. And what falls off, and how you make the same movie 5 years later and you don't have the Dave character. And you don't have some of the kind of more risque jokes that you have in here. And it's just this interesting point in history as being something of value if you are really looking at the history of this genre. So even though it's not directly tied to it, it is part of the journey to get to the 50,000 Hallmark movies we have every year now, and it's interesting in that way.
Yeah, unlike something like Christmas Chronicles, which I could see it was easier to sit into, I didn't really notice the runtime of this one. And I think, as I say, it's because I wasn't just sort of strapped down to sort of watch this. But at the same time, the plotting is so light, and you can just have it in the background and not really miss anything at all. And it draws your attention to the things you need to have your attention drawn to, and the filler isn't sort of overly obvious in this one. Yeah, so
long as you sit down and keep your entire body on the screen during the tree scene, because that is important and that is fantastic. And it will, I think 6 years from now, when I am feeling down, when I have a bad day, I am going to pull this up on Amazon and just get to that scene and watch it again, because it made me really happy. It's so stupid. But that is Borrowed Hearts. It is available. It's streaming on, at least in the States, it's streaming on Freevee, which is a wing of Amazon that has commercials. Yeah. Although it has very few commercials. I think I only had one commercial break, actually. So that's kind of a nice thing about Freevee, is it is less commercials than Tubi or the Roku channel or some of the other sites. So it is out there if you are curious. And again, I think if you have a passing curiosity about this, just give it a go, because there's a lot there that I think is enjoyable in a weird way. But that is Borrowed Hearts. Now, Elwood, tell everybody what you're up to and where else they can find you.
You can obviously find me on my blog, which is from the Depths of Really Hell, which is from the Depths of Really Hell.wordpress.com. You can find me on Letterboxd, which is Elwood_Jones, which is really the only social media I do. Podcast-wise, we've got the Asian Cinema Film Club, which at the moment we're in the midst of celebrating Kaiju Christmas. This year we're going to be looking at Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. So we're into like the 90s Godzilla, which is be really interesting to look at. And my other show being Movies and Tea, where each season we pick a different director to reevaluate the filmography and work through. At the moment, we're in the midst of recording our Wes Anderson season, which when we originally started the show was going to be season 1. But then we really wanted to watch Event Horizon, so Paul W.S. Anderson became our season 1.
Way more fun, in my opinion.
Wes Anderson's now our season 10. So... But, you know, it's...
He's making the same exact movies he made 10 years ago, so it's really... didn't make a difference, probably.
No, exactly.
Burn! Wes Anderson, burn! I do like Fantastic Mr. Fox, though.
There's certain films then within Wes Anderson's filmography I really do enjoy. I mean, I like Royal Tenenbaums, I like Rushmore.
Yeah, those are agreed, actually. Those are my two.
I don't like Grand Budapest, which everybody else seems to really love. And then there's movies like Life Aquatic, which I have a connection to because my father was a marine biologist, and we watched that together. So I have that connection to it because of him. But like, it's when you do look at it, start in a director's filmography and work your way through it, and you identify the themes, such as like Paul W.S. Anderson, who everyone dismisses because he did a bunch of Resident Evil movies. But his films visually are so interesting, and especially when you move away from the Resident Evil movies, and you look at things like Soldier, Event Horizon, even like Shopping, there's some really interesting ideas and themes within his work. And he also gave us Mortal Kombat, which is the greatest movie of all time.
I'm still a Street Fighter fan. That's
I know you are,
I pick that battle every time, but you do you. I respect it.
I know, but Mortal Kombat has that wonderful Pavlovian response of if you yell Mortal Kombat, people will either might do techno music at you or give you like that knowing like thumbs up.
You're not wrong, but if I say for me it was Tuesday, then you also get the same reaction to people that are like, "My God, Raul Julia is so good in that movie." So it's it's cool. We can still be friends. It's all good. With that being said, I think it is time for us both to scream and then scurry up trees and get saved by little boys whose dads didn't love them.
It's Christmas time at last. I'm gonna have a blast. I'll help with setting up, although I'm never asked to help with the decor. I knock it to the floor, 'cause when it comes to decorating, less is more. I'm not always understood. Sometimes they think that I'm a brat, but Santa knows if I'm bad or good. He also knows that I'm a cat. So I'm climbing up the Christmas tree to help with the festivities. I'm climbing up the Christmas tree